That ability to just practice letting go of control a little bit, that we don't have to sort of control every moment of our lives, that it's okay for things to just happen and to embrace those and look for the good in them and find opportunities to connect with other people.
How lovely your place of dwelling, God Almighty. Welcome to the Psalms for the Spirit podcast and to this series of conversations I'm calling Something Psalmic. I'm your host, Kiran Wimberly, an ordained minister and spiritual director, an American living on the north coast of Ireland. 15 years ago, I started working on a project called Celtic Psalms, and since then have arranged and recorded 44 psalms set to traditional Irish and Scottish melodies, along with my dear friends, the McGraths. And throughout the years, I've heard over and over again how the psalms lift our spirits, how they help us find healing and hope when we really need it. I've also noticed that the themes and elements of the Psalms ripple out into so many aspects of our lives, and I've become curious about what in our lives is like a psalm, what brings us healing and hope in the midst of our days. So in this series, I've invited my guests to share with me something psalmic, something of or like a psalm that's helping them through right now. I hope this series inspires you to find something psalmic in your life too. And whatever it is that brought you here, I'm so glad you're with us. Blessed are the ones whose strength is from you. Hello, Heather. I'm so glad that you're here. It's so good to see you. And I am really excited to have you come and share with us a little bit about what you find uplifting in your life today. And also, I have been so drawn to what you've been sharing recently about art journaling. And I've just been so captivated by the little videos you've been putting up. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit more about what that has meant to you. And so, but before we begin, I would like to invite you to share a little bit about yourself with us. How do you like to introduce yourself? How would you describe yourself, just so we get a sense of who you are?
Hey, Kiran. It's so cool to be here with you on your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me. So, gosh, I never know where to start with introductions. You know, it seems like people always introduce themselves by what they do, and I will definitely talk about what I do. But I don't know, I guess a couple years ago, that seemed to feel like not enough of an introduction, or especially as a clergy person. You know, if you tell people you're a clergy person, they have a lot of preconceived ideas about what that means about who you are.
Yeah.
And I went to a conference a couple years ago where they asked us to make our own name tags, and we could put our name, but we couldn't put our title. But you were supposed to fill in the name tag with either pictures or other words that described you.
Nice.
And I loved that. So maybe I'll introduce myself that way first, and then I can talk about more of the usual cocktail party introductions.
Yeah.
So I like to, I love all those little personality test things, some of which are quite serious and psychological, and some of which are more whimsical, let's say. So I would tell you that I'm an Aries.
Okay. Ooh, didn't know
which is a fire sign, and that has always felt quite appropriate to me. One of the times I've felt most seen in my life, and I wasn't even there for it, was when my husband asked my father's blessing to marry me. And my father said, well, she's a fiery one. But if you think you can handle her. So I'm an Aries. Okay. If you're into the Enneagram, I'm a 4.
Interesting.
Which is the romantic. It speaks to my creative side.
Yep.
The shadow side of the 4 is that we are always longing for something. We tend to feel like something is missing and we're looking for something more. And that can be true for me in big ways, like, oh, I'm not in exactly the right job, or something, if I lived somewhere else, my life would be fuller. But I also experience that in small ways. Like if I'm out to dinner, I can be looking at somebody else and thinking they ordered the better food. And I should have got what they got. So I have to fight that side of the shadow side of my Enneagram 4.
Yeah.
And on the Myers-Briggs, I'm an INFP.
Me too.
Are you?
At least in my most recent one, that was what I was.
Yeah, I'm on the edge between I and E, and I'm actually can ride the line between thinking and feeling as well, which is seems a little strange, but yeah. So those are some of my ways that I identify myself that maybe you aren't the first things you share at a cocktail party.
Exactly. And I've known you for a while, and I wouldn't have known all that, you know. It helps me get a window into you. That's why those personality things are helpful. Even just what resonates with you about them, you know, like how it helps you to have that window into yourself, I think is what makes those so helpful. Right.
Helps you understand the patterns that you have and how to grow in the areas where you need and want to grow. So,
yeah. Well, it makes sense that you have chosen a ministry that is a little different and a little creative. And so go on. Yeah. What's next?
Yes. So as an Aries 4 INFP, I am a clergy woman, as you are. Yep. And I served in 2 churches over 16 years of parish ministry. And alongside that, over the last 10 years, I was developing a ministry called Progressive Pilgrimage, which is surprisingly how you and I know each other best, although we have overlapped in a few different areas of our life and work.
Yeah.
And so Progressive Pilgrimage is a travel ministry that provides spiritual travel for groups, mainly for progressive Christians, although we've worked with people of other faiths and no faith. But I really started it because I wanted to take a group from the church I was serving at the time to the Holy Land, Israel and Palestine. And I was having a hard time finding a provider, a tour operator that was Christian in its, that came from a Christian perspective, but that wasn't either Roman Catholic, and nothing, of course, against Roman Catholics, but there's a specific style of religious travel for Roman Catholics that doesn't really resonate with Protestants. And that wasn't evangelical in a way that didn't feel like it would be a good fit for my congregation, both in terms of sort of their intellectual approach to studying scripture and some values around how we engage with the people of the Holy Land.
Right.
So, and those things were both really important to me. So I thought, well, I could probably just plan this myself. One of the other things about me is I've been a traveler since I was in the womb. My parents were both in the military, and from the time I was literally an infant and before I was born, they were carting me all around Europe because they were living in Germany at the time.
Oh, didn't know that. No wonder you're so at home with traveling. That makes sense.
Yeah, even in my childhood, we couldn't really afford to travel much in the United States other than to visit our grandparents. But my parents, after my dad retired from the military, could fly for free on space available travel, but only overseas.
Oh.
Space A domestic travel wasn't available for retirees. So, or maybe still isn't. But so we would drive to Dover, Delaware from Tennessee, where I grew up, and catch a free flight, usually to Germany, where we still had friends, and would use that as a base for traveling. So, since I was a child, I've been traveling pretty frequently, and I've digressed a bit.
That's amazing. That's so cool. What a cool insight into travel and how accessible it could be for you. What a gift, to grow up that way. That must have been, such a gift for you and your family.
It really was. I'm sure I took it for granted, and probably there were times I felt jealous that my friends were going to the beach and I didn't get to go to the beach, but I, got to go to Paris or Italy or Germany. So, all of that sort of has informed who I am and led in, I think, to the opportunity to create travel for other people. And I built that first trip when I was serving the Sea Island Presbyterian Church in Beaufort, South Carolina, and it went fantastically. We had some hiccups around the flights, but we were able to sort those out. And in terms of the trip that I built it was amazing. And as I was feeling called to move into more urban ministry in a church, and the reality of that, as I'm sure you know, is that there's not always full-time work, or if it's full-time work, it's not really full-time pay. And I was worried about, if I followed that sense of call into that kind of ministry, what that would mean for our family's finances. And that seemed like the opportune moment to take this thing that I had done really well once and see if I could turn it into something that might help support our family. And that's how Progressive Pilgrimage was born.
Yeah.
So,
and you collaborate with your husband, Eric, who's also a wonderful addition to the organization. I know it was like your brainchild, right? But you two work together in a great partnership, which is really inspiring.
It is a cool partnership. I think the vision behind it was largely mine, but Eric is definitely the one that would be more of the entrepreneur among the two of us. I might have dabbled in it every 2 or 3 years, planned a trip, but Eric was like, no, I think there's something we could do here. So, and then just the way our careers were going, it actually made sense for him to start working full time with Progressive Pilgrimage before that made sense for me. So he had some other career changes happening in his regular work, and we decided it was a good time for him to take a leap. And so since 2019, he's been full time with Progressive Pilgrimage. And then in 2024, I left my call at the Elliott Presbyterian Church. And my presbytery, which is our regional governing body in the Presbyterian Church, my presbytery has blessed this ministry. So they call it validated ministry. And that means that I can still, preside at the table and officiate marriages. I still hold on to my ordination, but I carry out my ministry through Progressive Pilgrimage instead of in a parish.
Yeah. Which is super cool. Yes, it is. It is. It's so nice to be validated in ministries that are not your typical way of doing ministry, but are so important. And you and I share a love for pilgrimage. And so I'm just so glad that you are able to really live out that calling through your nonprofit. And it's been a pleasure to be able to work with you at times. And I know that it's also, I think pilgrimage itself has become this spiritual practice that people are really turning to in a new way. And so, tell us a little bit more about that. And I know you just got back from a really incredible new one that you've never done before.
Yeah.
And, so what are you thinking about pilgrimage as a spiritual practice today for yourself and for others?
Yeah, I think that there's something that happens when you get out of your own context that just opens your mind to new ways of thinking. Because here you are in another country, and maybe it's even a country that's not so different from your own. You don't have to go to India or somewhere with a very dramatically different culture, but even to go to France or to Ireland, you're even in just small ways encountering these differences in how people live. And it unsettles you a little bit. Yeah. And I think that unsettling is part of what cracks open that space for something to change inside of you. And I think we need to be cracked open. And we know that we need it, but it's really hard to do that at home. At home, we're so entrenched in our patterns, in our work patterns, in our relationship patterns. And I think to leave home gives you a chance to step outside those patterns and see things with new eyes. And God is at work in all of that.
Yeah.
And there's ways that, I think there's ways that travel can be a pilgrimage, even if you don't think of yourself as a particularly religious person, because that breaking out of the patterns doesn't always have to do with faith and religion.
Yeah.
Although I think we also break out of our religious patterns,
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, it's just so eye-opening in so many ways. And even if you have a short period away, I just went on a conference or retreat. It wasn't a pilgrimage, but I felt like I was putting those same principles to work, and that I left like very much aware of my own state of mind, and that I was like, I don't want to go. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I need to do this, but I don't really want to go. And it was wanting to be in my comfort zone. Really, that was what was actually going on. And, fair enough. I was tired and I didn't really want to leave my family right now. But then I went, and a few days later, I came back feeling so different. I really did. And it was just amazing to notice that contrast, that even just a few days away out of your comfort zone can give you a different perspective on the place where you spend most of your time. And it just gave me new eyes to see my surroundings and my home and my family. And, and that was just a few days away, but let alone an entire pilgrimage where you're gone for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, or, if it's something like the Camino, even longer than that, you're gone for like 30 days or however long people, 6 weeks or however long people spend doing a proper Camino. And the absolute like reset and reboot that you can get through that.
Yeah. I've never done a proper Camino, so to speak, but you're right. It does give you this huge reset. One of the great gifts, I think, of parish ministry and I don't know if you've experienced it in your own parish ministry, is the gift of sabbatical. And my sabbatical that I had in 2022 was a bit like that. I wasn't on a Camino. I didn't do one thing for the whole period, but I had this very long reset. And yeah, your soul needs those times. And it should be something that I think we are advocating for in every field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in the United States, where people get so little vacation time. I think in some other cultures, people are used to having longer periods of reset. But, so many people here in the United States don't get more than 2 weeks of time off the whole year.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine when you...
And especially if your family lives away and you used to have to use your vacation time to visit, your parents, and you're spending some of that time caring for them. Like, when are the times when your soul really gets a reset?
Yeah.
And maybe you have to find, short times away like what you just had to work those in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's probably freeing for people to know that pilgrimage can be short. And then it could maybe give you a taste of what's possible and lead you to want to plan something that is longer, but like even a 4 or 5 day pilgrimage. I mean, I think one of the groups that I traveled with for you was definitely under a week. And it was transformative for all of us who were on that too. Yeah. It doesn't have to be your entire vacation time. It can be shorter, which is good to know that it can happen through a short period of time as well as through those longer periods if you are able to schedule that in.
Yeah. And you don't have to go across the ocean either, I think it is good to get out of your regular setting.
Yeah.
But if you live in an urban context, if you could go on a 3-day hike, and you don't even have to sleep outside. Like, you could just walk for a day, sleep in a B&B or something, and that's pretty common in Scotland. It's really easy to do that. It's a little harder, but not impossible in the United States.
Yeah.
And I think another piece of that too is trying to listen to people that you don't normally listen to. And that's one of the things we really try hard to build into all of our pilgrimages, that they're not just sort of broad cultural experiences and they're not strictly religious experiences, but we really try to meet local people and hear their stories. When we're in Scotland, we're always visiting local churches and hearing about the joys and the challenges that they're facing. And every time my people leave saying, oh, those were some of the most meaningful experiences on our trip. Yes, we saw Edinburgh Castle, or yes, we saw whatever big site, but what I'm really going to remember is that conversation with the elder from the Greyfriars Church. And I'm going to learn something from that, and I'm going to share that with other people, and it will shape my faith and my relationship with my church.
Yeah.
And
those connections.
And so it's not it's the connections. It's not the big sites and the high dollar things that you put so much expectation on.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned to you the other day, I was just in France with this group, and the group had been so excited to walk the labyrinth in Chartres, which is the big famous labyrinth. If you're a labyrinth person, that's like your bucket list labyrinth. Yeah. And it's only open on Fridays for walking. Other times it has chairs on top of it. And we had found out that it wasn't going to be open on Friday, which was a huge bummer because we had planned the whole trip so that we would be in Chartres on Friday. But it was going to be open for 2 hours Thursday night. And so this thing that had been a really high, important to check off the list sort of pilgrimage experience was going to be compressed into a 2-hour window. And when we got there, there were like 35 other people also waiting to walk the labyrinth in this 2-hour window. And it was supposed to be open from 4 to 6. And at 4:15, they still hadn't started to move the chairs. And we're all getting a little antsy. And there's our group are, English speakers. And this group over here are German speakers. And everybody's kind of like looking around, trying to figure out, could we just move the chairs on our own? But we don't want to be rude. And so finally, the lady in charge comes over and asks us to help move the chairs. And we ended up working together with these German folks with whom we don't share a language. Yeah. And collaborating with them on moving the chairs. And the way the chairs are, you can't just pick up a chair and carry it. They are rows of 5 chairs that are bolted together. So it takes 2 or 3 people to move one row of chairs. And so our group was working together with this other group. And then we did eventually have a chance to walk the labyrinth, but it maybe wasn't as private as you would have liked it to been, right? Because here's 70 people trying to get their time on the labyrinth in just an hour and a half or so. But several members of the group said, as much as I loved walking the labyrinth, I felt so connected to other people in that time of moving the chairs.
That was the part that stood out.
And the connection with this German group who we knew we were both sort of seeking some of the same things, but our language, we didn't really have a chance to talk about it. But some people in our group felt especially connected to them. And that was as special as walking this bucket list labyrinth. Yeah. It's what makes a pilgrimage.
Yeah. And you can't plan that much as you are excellent at planning these wonderful itineraries.
No.
That's the type of thing you absolutely can't predict happening. You can't plan it. And yet it's the attitude of being open to things like that happening. Because I guess people could have taken the other approach and been like, I'm so disappointed. I had to go through the labyrinth with such a rush. There were all these people around. We had to move the chairs ourselves, that could have been the takeaway.
Yes.
But actually,
and look, there probably were people in the group who were thinking that and they didn't say it out loud, right?
Well, they didn't.
And so that's part of it. It's that you choose to look with different eyes and to see where is the gift in this rather than the other option, which is to lean into the shadow side of my 4 and see what's missing and what's not there, but to lean into the possibility and the connection, I think is what we bring to pilgrimage that shapes it into a pilgrimage instead of just another trip.
Yeah. I love that example, that illustration of what can unfold that, is that unexpected gift. And then I like whenever I finish a pilgrimage or even this past trip that I took, is kind of re-entering your life with this kind of new awareness of those kinds of things actually happen all the time. Things like plans don't always go the way we want them to, and then different things happen. And instead of being in a rush and, and thinking, oh, I wish things had gone the way I thought they were going to, we can also look at our daily lives with a lot more grace and openness and flexibility for the Spirit to kind of break in and do something different that we weren't expecting. So I think it really helps to reframe a lot. So it's
and that ability to just practice letting go of control a little bit, that we don't have to sort of control every moment of our lives, that it's okay for things to just happen and to embrace those and look for the good in them and find opportunities to connect with other people.
Definitely. Hi listeners, it's Kiran here. Thank you so much for listening to Psalms for the Spirit. And I hope you're enjoying this series about what lifts our spirits and offers us healing and hope at this challenging time. This summer, I am inviting you to join me for something special. It's called Summer for the Spirit, a season to cultivate well-being in body, mind, and spirit through daily practices and through community. In a world where hard news keeps coming and we are feeling overwhelmed and anxious and depleted, we need practices that ground us, refresh us, give us courage to engage with hope and love and joy. If you're craving moments of peace and inspiration, and if you need sustenance for the journey, Summer for the Spirit just might be for you. Head over to kiranyoungwimberly.com/summer to find out more and download your free guide to 7 spiritual practices for well-being in uncertain times. Let's nurture our spirits this summer so that we can make a difference together. My God, I'll give thanks evermore. So, Heather, I wanted to ask you, the theme of this new series in the podcast is looking at what's psalmic in our lives. What is like a psalm to us, in that it brings you that lifting of the spirit and offers you that healing and hope that we all need in the world these days. We need those things to help us along and help us get through. So what is that for you right now?
Yeah, when you told me about this theme, I had to really think for a little bit about what does psalmic even mean?
I know.
Like
I've had a little more time to think about it.
Well, I love it. I loved the challenge of what is psalmic about pilgrimage or about art journaling? But I felt like before I could answer that question, I had to answer for myself, what does psalmic mean?
Yeah.
And maybe it means something different for me than it means to you. Mm-hmm. I sort of came away with the idea of what psalmic means to me is sort of a connecting with God and maybe the earth or the world, but through some sort of creative expression. And my first instinct is praise, and there's a ton of praise in the Psalms, but I'm also mindful of how much lament there is in the Psalms and how much expression of need.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is sort of what I sort of came around to, was that what psalmic means to me is to bring all of that praise and lament and need before God in a creative way. Whether that's words or music or something more visual. I think so many of the Psalms have this visual component, it makes me to lie down by the still waters. There's so much to visualize there. That's kind of where I got to when I was thinking about even what the question means.
I like that. I like that definition. Thank you very much. I think I need to have as many definitions of that as I can, because it's one of those words. It's kind of like, I didn't even know it existed until like a couple of years ago. And I was like, what? How did I miss that? And then I was thinking about it and I was like, that's such an evocative word. And it could mean so many things. And I think you've actually kind of put a really nice open definition there. And thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. So so now that you have that definition, what would you say is psalmic for you?
It would be great to ask all your contributors what psalmic means to them.
I think we are getting quite a few different understandings of it. So by the end, we'll have a very rich understanding of what psalmic is. So
nice. Psalmic is. Yeah. So, I think pilgrimage feels psalmic to me, again, because it sort of extracts you from your present moment. And in that way, it's sort of a lifting, right? That when you're away, you can kind of look on your regular life like from above, or like with a bird's eye view sort of thing. And that in its own way feels sort of psalmic to me, learning new ways to speak about God. Also, on this most recent trip to France, we were studying Black Madonnas, which are images of the Virgin and Child with dark skin. Yeah. I kind of knew that they existed, but I really didn't know very much about them until I started researching for this particular trip. And we had a guide in for a few days who, of course, is a native French speaker and extremely competent and with extremely excellent English. But there were moments when she couldn't, find exactly the right word for what she wanted to say in English. And my favorite of those moments was when I think she wanted to talk about the Virgin as a miracle worker, which is a very familiar English term that doesn't do much for me at all spiritually. I just kind of go, whatever, But she couldn't find that phrase, or she didn't know that English turn of phrase. And so what she called Mary instead was a wonder maker.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful.
And I just thought, wonder maker is so much richer for me and so much less sort of burdened with a certain kind of baggage than miracle worker. And it gave me this whole new, just those two words gave me this whole new encounter with Mary. Now, I'm already Protestant, so encounters with Mary are not my, regular cup of tea outside of Advent, right?
Yeah.
So to have this new language, that felt psalmic.
Yeah.
Like here is a turn of phrase that the words themselves aren't strange, but to put them together and as a way of talking about Mary gave me a new way of connecting with the Holy. And that was something psalmic, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what does wonder evoke for you? As you think about that, how does that unfold for you in your life?
Yeah. Well, again, I think in the context of this particular moment with this guide, she was thinking of miracles that this image of Mary according to tradition, had worked to protect people. But that's not where I go first when I hear the word wonder. So I think it was this connecting of the idea of a miracle with something that's more like awe.
Yeah.
That sort of feeling of just being stunned, of having your breath taken away in a good way.
Yeah.
And thinking of Mary as a wonder maker and sort of carrying her with me then for the rest of the pilgrimage, and maybe in some ways for the rest of my life or some phase of my life, as one who makes wonder for us.
Wow. Yeah. how special to have had that, that simple like change in phrasing was able to connect with you in a way that, I don't know, it seems to have really shifted something for you.
Yeah.
And again, it was that unexpected thing where, you couldn't have planned that, but it was somehow able to reach you in a deeper way. And it sounds like it really enriched your spirituality, and that's something you want to take with you from there.
Yeah. And, it's something I went in sort of ambivalent about. I don't have any, I'm not anti-Mary. I just don't really, like I said, I don't think about her that much except at Christmas time. And even then I feel like a little, oh, well, but she's not just some meek, mild lady. She's a fighter. She's the author of the Magnificat, lift up the lowly, tear down the tyrants, like that Mary. I love her. But I don't spend a lot of time the rest of the year thinking too much about her. And so just this new connection feels really special and unexpected because, I'm cool with, I love the divine feminine, Mary, the mother of God. Like, there's cool stuff there, but it's not stuff that has really shaped my own faith in a deep way. And so to have this new connection, this new angle on my own relationship with the Holy One feels really exciting.
Yeah, we don't have that as a part of our theology as Protestants. And yet it's really nice to be able to kind of have that shift in perspective that really actually enriches our spiritual life. It doesn't feel like it's something that we can't appreciate or access in some way. And I think it really connects us with other traditions within Christianity. And I find it really important to connect ecumenically with other traditions. And, a lot of the work I do in Northern Ireland is trying to find ways to connect between Protestants and Catholics. And Mary is, that's a subject that is going to be contentious. But for you to find something that just speaks into you for whatever reason, we don't even need to unpack why, but it meant something to you and it's something you're going to carry with you. And it goes to show you in some ways that, the idea that we, on pilgrimage, you find Christ in the stranger. And I guess in this case, you found a gift for your spirituality in a stranger, in a strange way, a way that you weren't expecting. You thought maybe it wasn't for you or something, but it did reach you.
I went into this pilgrimage being as excited about traveling with the women. It was all women on this trip. And I was expecting most of all to feel connected with them. And I did. And sort of not expecting my relationship with Mary to change very much. And, I don't know that I'm going to put a statue of Mary in my backyard or anything anytime soon. My neighbors all around me, there's a lot of Catholics where I live. All around me, people have little Mary grottos in their yard. I won't be putting one of those up, I don't think, but I'll look at them with new eyes when I pass them by now.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. That's such a great example of how we can be changed through pilgrimage. Yeah. So if you want to say just a little word about art journaling, because as I said earlier, I was really captivated by the little videos you were putting up on social media. And it was clearly from your trip because I think there were images of the Black Madonnas and things. So you were seeing things and maybe cutting up brochures, or I don't know what those images were, but you were kind of filling your pages with these gorgeous images and sharing them with us. And I was really inspired by that. And then you were talking about this is what you can bring on pilgrimage. And here's a little set of pens and this is what you need. And, here are the scissors, but don't bring the sharp scissors on in your bag on the plane.
Carry-on bag.
But I thought that was really wonderful to have a practice that, I don't know if I guess you said you maybe started it before going, but you were prepared with all those supplies to go on this pilgrimage. And could you just say a word to us about that for those listening, about maybe how people could incorporate some art journaling into their lives?
Yeah. So I would say, of questions you asked me in preparation for this, art journaling feels super psalmic to me because it is a very creative expression, and it makes there's room in there for praise and lament and need. And you can sort of put all of that into both the words and the scribbles, the colors. And it feels very much like composing a psalm, I think to art journal.
Yeah.
So I've always been a bit of a journaler, and that's taken writing journaling.
Yeah.
That's taken several forms over the course of my life. And sometimes it's a discipline that I really stick to. And other times I drop it for a while. I often find that when I'm feeling a little disoriented in my own life, I have realized I haven't been journaling and I need to get back to that.
Yeah.
So, but I had kind of gotten out of a journaling habit and was trying to get back in, but not finding a way back in really easily. Like I would start for a few days and then suddenly a week would go by and I hadn't journaled. And the church I had been attending, this was just this past Lent, was offering an art journaling workshop during Lent. So instead of giving something up for Lent, take on this new experience of art journaling. And that was probably the best introduction I've had to how to bring together the writing piece and the art piece. So each week we would go to class and we took our physical art journal book, but the leader of the class would come with prompts and with all the other supplies that you needed. So all you had to bring was your own journal and she had everything else that you needed. And she would give us a writing prompt at the start. And my favorite was, not so much for the content, but for the style, was she gave us a question and she had us write for, 2 minutes, not very long, on the page. Just write whatever you're thinking about this prompt. And then she told us to turn the page 90 degrees. And she gave us another prompt. And she told us, now write, at 90 degrees, having turned the page, write on top of your first writing for the second prompt. And so now you're writing in maybe a different color or whatever. You're writing more words on top of your first prompt. And then she had us turn the page 90 degrees again. So now your first writing is upside down.
Okay.
And she gave us a third prompt and we wrote on top. And that was the background for what would come next in our art journaling. But you've written 3 different prompts. They were all related to each other thematically. But you really aren't going to go back and read them because you can't. And so the writing was an opportunity to kind of get some thoughts out of your head and onto paper. And then she had us pull different ideas from each of those writings and turn those into little things that we glued onto the page or that we, colored some designs on the page. So the writing informed the art. But you couldn't really read the writing. And that was sort of the model that I've taken with me for other art journaling. Because it meets that need to write, but it doesn't get so absorbed in the writing.
Yeah. I actually love that you can't even go back to read it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's buried under all the layers.
Yeah. And, it sort of works a little bit like, so after you've written, it can work a little bit like a Lectio Divina, where you pull out words or phrases that stand out to you. And so sometimes that's like I might write and I might underline or circle or even just on a separate place, jot down the words or phrases that seemed meaningful in that writing. And then again, use those to make art on top of it. And if we have a chance in another video, I can show you some examples of that.
Oh, that's so good. Well, yes. What we're going to do is in the Deeper Well membership, I'm going to have a little video of you showing the your supplies and just talking us through the process a little bit. And you'll be able to share that with Progressive Pilgrimage as well. So people can seek out that resource after this. But it's really good for you to verbally tell us a little bit about what it is so anybody can just go off and try that themselves if they're artistically inclined or want to try something different.
Well, and you know what? I was going to say, I used to have people in my church when I would try to make them do creative things to reflect on God or their faith say, I'm not creative. And it's like, do you solve problems in your job? I'd have engineers tell me they weren't creative, but their job was to figure out how to fix things or figure out how to break things. And it's like, well, if you solve problems, that's creativity because you have to think about things in new ways.
Yes, that's true.
Lots of people are creative. Just because you don't know how to use a marker or you can't draw a good looking tree with a marker, that doesn't mean you're not creative.
Yeah, and I've had so many people on my retreats who come in and I just have an art table set up usually with a lot of supplies and people are they get so immersed in it and they say, I haven't had a chance to do art like this since I was in elementary or primary school.
Yeah.
So for them, it's just this really luxurious kind of experience of being able to just sit and do art. But it does help if there's a little bit of a shape to it. There's some like a prompt of some kind. Yeah. For some people, they need that. Others will, just more easily find something or some way to kind of process what they're thinking about through art.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the writing prompts are what I need those to help. Otherwise, if I just staring at a blank page and a bunch of supplies is hard. I don't know where to start it. Something to give a little bit of a shape and a vision. And the other thing that's cool about art journaling is it's for you. It's not to give away. It's not to hang on the wall. I mean, my art journal is a brown notebook and it sits on my bookshelf closed, so it's not about impressing anyone. And I even have to I have to work sometimes to let go of the need to impress myself. And, I have pages that I like better than others, but it's because it's an expression of your own thoughts or your own prayers. It's not something that has to be artistically masterful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And people can go ahead and try that, or they can look into seeing the video that we're going to provide to our groups. So, Heather, just as we close the podcast, what is one word or phrase that you want to leave with us today to send us on our journey?
Well, I think what I will leave you with is the thing that I learned on my sabbatical a few years ago that really has shaped so much of my life since then. And that is to seek beauty, creativity, and play. That those things, and I think those are also psalmic. The Psalms are filled with beauty. They are an expression of creativity, and there is a bit of playfulness in them. And I think in any circumstance in life, beauty, creativity, and play help us to live really well with ourselves and with each other and also with God.
Oh, that resonates so well. And I love the addition of the playfulness. I think that is important, especially when things feel heavy sometimes and we need to remember to play. And I remember you were telling me a few days ago about how you're just planning parties, and good for you. just invite people over, have some great music, and have a party even when things are feeling, pretty heavy these days. So I love that. So beauty, creativity, and playfulness. We will take that away with us. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Kiran.
You've been listening to Psalms for the Spirit with me, Kiran Young Wimberly, with music by Celtic Psalms. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would leave a 5-star review so that others can more easily find it. And if you know someone who might be inspired by this podcast, please do pass it on. And finally, make sure you sign up for my podcast email list so you never miss another episode. Until next time, may our spirits find healing and hope in the days ahead.